This black bean noodle shop is super famous, with customers streaming in and out every single day. But there's a catch. The shop's clientele is entirely made up of gangsters. Even so, the owner is still incredibly cheerful and enthusiastic. As the owner and head chef of Tasty Noodle Shop, Suntae actually has another identity. The vice boss of a notorious gang in the region. Hundreds of his underlings flock to his shop every day to eat noodles, creating a truly spectacular scene. Because of this, Suntae is constantly nagged by his wife, who wonders if this is Tasty Noodle Shop or Gangster Noodles. To live a peaceful, stable life with his wife and kids, Suntae recently found an investor, planning to open a nationwide chain. After tasting the black bean noodles at Tasty Noodle Shop, the investor was highly impressed. From the noodles to the side dishes, everything was perfect in terms of color, taste, and aroma. Next week, Suntae will officially sign the contract with the investor. Initially, Suntae planned to wait until the big boss retired before resigning as vice boss to focus wholeheartedly on running Tasty Noodle Shop. But recently, Suntae heard that because of his gangster identity, his daughter was being shunned and isolated by friends at school. To protect his family, Suntae submitted his resignation to the boss earlier than planned. Hearing this, the boss immediately pulled out a knife. Suntae thought the boss wanted him to chop off a finger, as this was the gang's rule. Anyone who wanted to leave early must pay the price. Unexpectedly, the boss snatched the knife back, slapped him lightly, and then handed the precious knife to Suntae, telling him to sell it to buy clothes for his wife. The boss agreed to let Suntae resign simply because he is a man who values sentiment and loyalty. For a long time, he knew full well that Suntae preferred being a chef to being a gangster. That night, Suntae went home and shared the good news with his wife. However, that very same night, he received news that the boss had suddenly passed away. The crime scene showed no signs of foul play. Suntae also provided clues to the police. During their meeting earlier that day, he noticed the boss secretly wiping away tears. As far as Suntae knew, the boss's children were studying abroad, so perhaps he missed them. Additionally, the police found records showing the boss frequently visited a psychiatrist, leading to the conclusion that the boss passed away due to mental pressure. A few days later, everyone in the gang held a funeral for the boss. However, at the funeral, banks, the court, and other gangster groups showed up one by one to demand debt payments. It turned out the boss was in massive debt while he was alive. Now that the boss is dead, these people demanded the successor step up to pay the debts. Unexpectedly, the high-ranking members who held shares in the gang, who had always coveted the boss's chair, now hurriedly backed away, finding excuses to refuse the position. After some discussion, everyone decided to let Vice Boss Suntae shoulder this burden. Suntae was meeting the investor, having just signed the contract to open the chain stores, planning to make a splash in the culinary industry. But when he returned to Tasty Noodle Shop, he was informed by the gang members that he was the succeeding boss. Suntae hurriedly refused, emphasizing that he was just a normal chef. But the gang members wouldn't let him off the hook, telling him to just hold both positions. Be a chef and a boss at the same time, the best of both worlds. Fortunately, Pan Ho, the third in command, really fancied the top seat. Pan Ho argued that his contribution to the gang was greater than Suntae's and insisted that he must be the boss. This played right into Suntae's hands. He immediately seized the opportunity to suggest, "Why don't we hold a democratic vote between Pan Ho and me?" Of course, Suntae thought that no matter what, he had to lose. So, Suntae racked his brain thinking of ways to be defeated and even asked a shareholder for advice. The shareholder hinted that since Suntae is the chef of Tasty Noodle Shop, who among the underlings hasn't eaten the black bean noodles he made, Suntae came up with an idea. That night, he called hundreds of gang members to come over and personally treated each of them to a bowl of black bean noodles. The purpose was to buy their hearts, strictly instructing the underlings to remember one thing. They must absolutely vote for his opponent, Pan Ho. All you have to do is this, and from now on, everyone's daily lunch is on the house, and all your old debts will be completely wiped clean. Pan Ho happened to see the scene of Suntae summoning the underlings and mistakenly thought Suntae was campaigning for the election. So, Pan Ho also called the underlings over, promising that if they voted for him, everyone would receive a cash handout every month. If they had major life events like getting married, having a baby, or buying a house, there would be a generous bonus allowance as well. Even though the cash allowance sounded way better than free lunch, Pan Ho didn't treat the underlings like family. He treated everyone with punches and insults. The underlings knew exactly what was what deep down, and they started buzzing about it in the gang's group chat. In there, nearly 80% of the underlings planned to vote for Suntae. After all, Suntae was the only one who truly looked after them like family. Seeing the movement in the group chat, Suntae honestly wanted to cry, but no tears would come out. To make sure he lost, Suntae racked his brain thinking. Finally, following his wife's suggestion, Soon-tae came up with another brilliant idea. He went to the bank, intentionally using a loan application as an excuse to start trouble, beat up the bank manager, and deliberately let the security cameras record it all. When the incident reached the police, Soon-tae didn't hire a lawyer and offered no defense. He just demanded that the police lock him in jail according to the law. As long as he was in jail, he would easily miss election day. Unexpectedly, Pan-ho stepped in to ruin the plan. With Pan-ho's help, the bank manager chose not to press charges. Listen to this. Soon-tae kept insisting on settling the matter, so much so that the police were stunned. Out of options, the police captain ordered Soon-tae kicked out. Just like that, election day arrived. The election results made Soon-tae want to just drop dead and be done with it. The underlings were like they had been hypnotized. More than 90% of them voted for him. The shareholders were preparing to announce the results when, unexpectedly, a woman suddenly burst in. This woman called for the election to stop. She was one of the gang's veterans, reminding the shareholders not to forget one person. Her son, Kangpyo. 10 years ago, the gang was being extorted for a huge sum by a corrupt police officer. Back then, the big boss made a rule. Whoever could take care of this cop would succeed him as the next big boss. This mission was supposed to be assigned to Soon-tae by the boss, but unexpectedly, Kangpyo was one step faster than Soon-tae and took care of that cop neatly. And because of that, he had to serve 10 years in prison. Today was the day Kangpyo was released on parole. Kangpyo's mother hoped the shareholders wouldn't forget this old story. According to the rules back then, the position of big boss must be inherited by her son. Soon-tae thought to himself, well, naturally, after getting out of prison, Kangpyo gave a powerful speech in front of the underlings. Soon-tae waited to see Kangpyo claim the big boss position. But who would have guessed? Kangpyo pointed at Soon-tae and said he wanted Soon-tae to be the boss. Kangpyo's mother hurriedly asked her son for the reason, and Soon-tae was even more confused about why on earth this was happening. Seeing that Soon-tae was determined not to be the boss, the shareholders made a demand. Unless Soon-tae could persuade Kangpyo to become the boss, he would still have to accept the position based on the election results. Kangpyo's mother kept pressing her son. She wanted to know why, since before going to prison, becoming a powerful boss who could cover the sky with one hand was Kangpyo's dream. Kangpyo explained that he now had a different dream. It turned out that after going to prison, during a chance encounter, Kangpyo watched a tango performance. From then on, he was mesmerized and went crazy for tango, wanting to become a professional tango dancer. For the sake of his tango dream, Kangpyo even signed up for a dance competition. To stop Kangpyo from giving up on the idea of being the boss, Soon-tae and Kangpyo's mother joined forces. On the day of the competition, under the direction of those two, the gang's underlings launched an all-out attack, risking their lives to stop Kangpyo from getting on stage. However, Kangpyo's martial arts skills were just too outstanding. He took on 100 of them by himself, taking down dozens of underlings. Unfortunately, due to that massive brawl, Kangpyo ended up missing his dance competition time. Now, it was anyone's guess who the boss position would ultimately belong to. Kangpyo realized that Soon-tae was the one standing in the way of his dream. So, he decided to stage a scene to get back at Soon-tae. That day, a couple came to the Tasty Pavilion restaurant to eat. Unexpectedly, right after their meal, they suffered from food poisoning and had to be rushed to the emergency room. Upon inspection, Soon-tae discovered the cause was rotten meat in the kitchen. Realizing Kangpyo was behind this dirty trick, Soon-tae was furious and went to confront him. Just then, the shareholders arrived with a final solution. The two men would have a bare-knuckle duel, and the winner would become the boss. Soon-tae rolled his eyes and came up with a third brilliant idea. He suggested a slight change to the rules. This time, whoever loses becomes the boss. Before the showdown, a shareholder secretly approached Pan-ho. He insinuated that, deep down, he felt Pan-ho was the most suitable candidate for boss, and he ordered Pan-ho to eliminate both Soon-tae and Kangpyo during the match. Only when those two were dead would the boss's seat definitely belong to Pan-ho. Filled with ambition, Pan-ho agreed to the shareholders' plan. On the day of the duel, Soon-tae and Kangpyo were evenly matched, locked in an intense struggle without end. At the critical moment, Pan-ho pulled out 2 knives and stabbed each of them. Soon-tae and Kangpyo were wounded and fell into the sea. Thus, Pan-ho finally achieved his long-awaited dream of becoming the boss. But he absolutely never suspected that he had already fallen into someone else's trap. In reality, Soon-tae and Kangpyo were still very much alive and kicking. Hearing the news that Pan-ho had just held his inauguration ceremony, both of them were overjoyed. It turned out that right before the match, Soon-tae had come up with a countermeasure. He had found a special red sauce in the kitchen of Tasty Pavilion, poured it into bags and disguised it as blood. He then hid those blood bags on his body. Inside the bags, there was also a very thick piece of pork belly that a normal knife couldn't possibly pierce through. Suntae's plan was precisely to get Pan Ho to attack them, then they would fake being stabbed and fall into the sea. As long as Pan Ho took the position of boss, everything would be a perfect success. Now that they had achieved their goal, the two were hiding in Tasty Pavilion, casually eating black bean noodles. That is, until they discovered, that very evening, that the shareholder and Pan Ho had arrived at Tasty Pavilion to discuss business. The shareholder proposed to Pan Ho that he should start selling drugs. If Pan Ho refused to cooperate, he would meet the exact same fate as the previous boss. It turned out the previous boss hadn't died from stress, but was actually eliminated by the shareholders. Not long ago, the boss had flatly refused the shareholders' proposal to sell drugs. That was his principle. Even though he was a gangster, the boss still had a conscience. But Pan Ho was different. Under the threat of the shareholders, Pan Ho quickly agreed. After Pan Ho compromised, the shareholders even planned to turn Tasty Pavilion into a drug distribution hub. Hearing the truth from the back kitchen, Suntae and Kangpyo were furious, seeing red, and vowed to avenge the previous boss. Just then, the delivery guy for Tasty Pavilion spoke up, asserting that he would handle it and bring Pan Ho and the others to justice. It turned out the delivery guy had been an undercover cop all along. For the past 10 years, he had been secretly collecting information on the gang and sending it to his captain. However, during their last meeting, the captain told him he was truly dim-witted and useless. Every time the captain used his information to make an arrest, they were always a step too late and couldn't salvage a shred of evidence. Because of this, the captain gave him one last chance. If he failed this time, his police file would be wiped clean, and from then on, he would become a real gangster. Kangpyo was surprised by the delivery guy's undercover identity, but Suntae appeared extremely calm, as if he had known for a long time. He opened a secret cabinet, and inside, it was full of investigation files regarding the delivery guy. The delivery guy immediately whipped out his gun, pointing it straight at them, demanding to know how on earth Suntae figured out his true identity. Suntae remained perfectly calm and recounted the story. Once, by sheer accident, he spotted the delivery guy's computer left open and saw a video of him leaking information to the police, which blew his cover. But just as the captain had assessed, this delivery guy was truly thick-headed. Every now and then, he would carelessly let the word police or a police badge peek out from under his shirt. And every single time that happened, Suntae would casually reach over and fix his shirt for him, covering up those giveaways. The delivery guy couldn't understand why Suntae would help him hide his identity. Suntae revealed the reason. It was because the guy was honestly too naive. Whenever something big went down, the intel he provided was always flawed, and because of those mistakes, he had unintentionally saved the gang multiple times. That's why Suntae covered his room and board, treating him like the gang's guardian angel. Hearing this, the simple-minded delivery guy dropped the interrogation. Instead, he decided to side with the gang, helping Suntae and Kangpyo avenge the former boss. He pounded his chest, guaranteeing that this time he was definitely reliable because he had obtained quite a few videos from dashcams, including footage of the shareholders talking to Pan Ho that evening. Although you couldn't actually see anyone's face in the videos, this time, he handed the video evidence to his captain, only to get chewed out yet again. These faceless videos couldn't be used as evidence at all. Suntae and Kangpyo immediately fell into despair. But there was a silver lining. After this incident, the two finally started looking out for each other. Suntae told Kangpyo to go back and register for the tango competition. Kangpyo, in turn, wanted Suntae to return to being his chef. Neither of them wanted the other to fall into danger. Meanwhile, the delivery guy had already started his operation. Tonight, the shareholder and Pan Ho were set to sign a contract with another gang, who had brought along a significant amount of drugs. During the process, the delivery guy intentionally leaned forward, trying to get the hidden camera on his shirt button to record the transaction. Unexpectedly, Pan Ho waved him over and ordered him to test the product. The delivery guy had no choice but to step up, and he actually swallowed the pill right in front of them. As a result of the drug's effects, he went totally spaced out, even using his finger as a gun and shouting that he was a police officer here to make arrests. Everyone present, including Pan Ho, just thought he was a lunatic and delivered a kick that sent him flying. At this moment, Suntae and Kangpyo marched in boldly. Facing their interrogation, the new boss, Pan Ho, quickly sold out the shareholder, bluntly admitting that the shareholder was the one who eliminated the previous boss. The shareholder slipped away first, leaving Pan Ho responsible for holding the line. Before the battle kicked off, Suntae spoke to the underlings who were siding with Pan Ho. "You guys come to my shop every day to eat and drink for free. Shouldn't you have a little conscience?" Pan Ho didn't care and screamed at the underlings, ordering them to take care of Suntae. Unexpectedly, the underlings flocked to stand behind Suntae, all persuaded by his words. Next, the war officially began. The shareholder was blocked and forced to lead men from the other gang into a massive brawl against Suntae and his allies. In the mix, Pan Ho was absolutely no match for Kongo, getting crushed by him like a dumpling. Suntae wasn't afraid either, taking down countless enemies in the blink of an eye. Seeing the outcome was sealed, the shareholder tried to take advantage of the chaos to escape. Suntae and Kongo gave chase, but the shareholder was incredibly two-faced. He pretended to bow and apologize to Suntae, but in reality, he seized the opportunity to secretly grab a knife and stab him. However, the shareholder didn't expect that Suntae had already strapped the fake blood bags and the thick slab of pork to his chest beforehand, so that the knife stab had absolutely no effect. As he spoke, Suntae grabbed the precious knife that the previous boss had given him and fiercely threatened the greedy shareholder. Right at that moment, the police stormed in, and Suntae handed over the shareholder, Pan Ho, and all the others to the cops. From then on, the gang and the police reconciled, and the undercover delivery guy also scored a huge victory. Before leaving, the police casually asked one question. Between Suntae and Kongo, who is actually the boss of the gang? Hearing this, Kongo patted Suntae on the shoulder. I have to go register for the dance competition now. At this point, Suntae no longer refused. He proudly declared to the gang members, from now on, I am both the chef of Tasty Pavilion and the new boss of the gang. 1 year later, that once naive delivery guy had been promoted to captain. Not long after, another goofy undercover cop arrived. As he gave orders to his subordinates, he smiled, reminiscing about his own glory days. That was the summary of the movie Boss 2025. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to give me a like and subscribe to catch the latest videos. And for now, goodbye and see you next time.